Good Friday, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the weekly Whistle. Today we are back in this beautiful garden with my co-host Phil. Phil, how are you doing?
Good evening. I'm very good. I'm enjoying the beautiful sunny weather.
Yes,
How are
indeed.
you?
Good, good, good. And very excited for today's topic. So today we are going to be discussing charity, and it seems like a very easy question that you should give charity, you should help people out, but is it that simple? And that's where we come in, right? We try to make difficult conversations easier. So we will try to see if we can make the concept of charity a bit more clear. So Phil, what do you think about charity?
Yeah, okay. You know, I'm actually almost a bit worried that I got us into a topic that we are not experts on.
That is true.
And it will be an interesting conversation between us two again because we have quite different backgrounds. There's a question that I've been carrying around with me for a long time, which is how do I give charity? Whom do I give charity to? How do I avoid negative unintended consequences? And just how to approach the topic as a whole. Because there is it's kind of a complex problem to just go out and give things away if you think about it. And I don't like how simplistic it's made to look sometimes. I was really curious to have this conversation and just see some different perspectives and come to some realizations, maybe.
Yeah. Well, well, we can easily leverage our different upbringings from the east to the west to see how we have been taught about charity. So I think that's already a good place to start. But I think the most important thing to start off with is what is considered charity.
Yeah, well, I consider charity or charitable giving to be something where you're giving your time or your resources altruistically without anything asked for in return to people in need.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's simply.
That's
Is that
simply put.
concise enough?
Yeah, I think, and I agree with that definition. I think that's pretty on point.
Yeah.
But this whole giving without expectation is
Yeah.
what for us is very very important in charity. And as you already mentioned that we might not be experts. That is completely true. All of this show and everything behind it is basically the exercise of a conversation and commentary on certain topics. And whenever a need is like whenever there's a need for an expert, you should always consult an expert, I think.
Yeah.
So if there is a need to go deeper into it, we are planning to bring in more experts in their domains to have these kind of conversation. But in the start, even experts need a reason to come on. So we want to build that up, we want to build this up. And I think charity is such an open thing that if you bring one expert, then you'll find another who doesn't agree with that mentality.
That is true.
And we are going to discuss one of the movements that is very famous in the charity world, effective altruism.
Yeah.
And that is a completely different take on what charity is. So to start it off again, charity is the art of the exercise of giving without any expectations, be it your time, be it your resources. But do you think it's a moral obligation for us to be giving charity?
I come from the standpoint that kindness and support for other human beings or other living beings is an important duty of everybody. Um, to what extent that is, I don't actually know. Is it a moral obligation to really give a certain percentage of your wealth or something to other people?
Hmm.
It seems to be the consensus that we say that we do that, and also, I mean, world religions have always had the concept of giving charity 10%
Yeah.
or alms in Buddhism and so on. And I do believe we should be helping each other out. We should be. It's a mechanism for equalizing society, right? If we would not give charity, we have charity and we have taxes, basically.
That's what I wanted to discuss when you were talking about these things. Isn't this charity? Isn't this taxes? It's exactly taxes, right? You have to give a certain percentage to the government who equalizes it for you. Who's like, you know what, I'm going to distribute it to the people. And they don't distribute it just cash based. We're going to discuss that as well. I think you have a very nice study about cash incentives as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't just incentivize on cash, they incentivize on, they call that what uitkering in the Netherlands, or they also call like tax incentives.
Yeah,
And
Uitkeringen is basically support payments for
yeah,
people in need, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
and everyone is qualified to it if you meet a certain standard, a standard of like if you're unemployed for a couple of months, if you're disabled or something like that,
Yeah.
you're allowed to have that income. But what I'm trying to say is also not just that. There's also like tax benefits that you get. So, for example, I'm a small business owner, so I don't just get money, but I pay less taxes, and that
Mm-hmm.
helps me in basically equalizing compared to a bigger corporation. So, for me as well, charity seems like it's basically taxes. And even where I come from, like from an Islamic background, we have this compulsory tax that we have to pay every year.
Mm.
It's called 2.5% of your net worth, so
Okay.
assets and income and everything included, and it's called zakat. And the concept of zakat is that you always give it every year at Ramadan, at the end of Ramadan or
Okay.
around those times. And there are these very beautiful sayings of, okay, there was these empires which forced the people to be giving this. And there were times where if people completely gave zakat properly, there were times that people were holding the money in their hands and trying to find someone to give, but there was no one to give because
Mm.
it equalized so well. But these are, of course, sayings, so we don't know if they're true or not, but these are the sayings that were there. And the idea is to equalize society, and this tax was only based on Muslims,
Yeah.
while non-Muslims also had their own tax that they had to pay. But zakat is not applicable for non-Muslims; it's only
Oh,
applicable
okay.
for
So it's really
Muslims.
a religious
Yeah,
institution.
but if you're living in a Muslim state, you have also separate taxes for being a non-Muslim. So that's a completely
Okay.
separate
Well,
debate.
that's a separate topic. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's it is a means of equalizing wealth. So especially resource based, right? We're not talking about time based charity. So if that is the case, then in the Western world, like the Netherlands, where you pay around between 37 to 50, 60% taxes, is there room for charity?
That's a good question. Okay, there is room for charity. Is there a necessity for charity? It's a different question. I'd like to back up a little bit because it's like from my personal story. So I actually grew up in a household where both my parents were working as social workers. So they were investing their whole life, their whole working life into homeless shelters, like soup kitchens, helping people with alcoholism and this kind of
Is
thing.
that prevalent in Switzerland?
Um, yeah, that's funny, right? So I come from a very rich society in Switzerland, yet we still, yeah, have the need for that kind of support, like homeless kitchen, homeless shelters, and
Wow.
so on. Yes, it does exist, and that's exactly where I wanted to get to. Come from a rich nation. My parents were doing a lot of kind of charity work, and they did it in their neighborhood. Basically, they did it next to themselves, and then also then you have other people who just give money to the other side of the world. They give money to children in Africa, and because they have probably a lot less than any homeless person in Switzerland would
Yeah.
have. Now, is one better than the other? That's a bit my question.
Yeah.
Is it better to allocate your resources, that you're giving resources to the most poor, the most in need, even though they're far away, or should you just help in your own community? What do you think about that?
Well, I think this is a matter of uh, what do you call it, out of sight, out of mind, right? So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like the utility or the happiness that you're going to get from helping that neighbor in front of you is unmatched compared to the utility of you sending money abroad to an African child who might be even be cured of their blindness, which is
Mm-hmm.
100 times
Mm-hmm.
more worth it. And that's where our conversation of effective altruism will come in. That is exactly what they try to preach. But the thing is, we are humans at the end of the day. And if
Mm-hmm.
in your community you're helping, it's not just you're helping someone, you're getting the immediate human connection there. You're also getting the society support and the society's praise, and like there are a lot of different elements
Right.
that get into it that makes you feel better and wants you to do more. In the end, ethics and morality is just a way of living, right? And it's a way of society to function.
Exactly.
So I feel like, and from that perspective, it's much better to. They say charity begins at home, right? So
So yeah, and probably there is no right and wrong, but we can just think about it. I recently heard this thought experiment where it say, well, imagine you walk in a park and you see a girl drowning in a pond or in a
wearing a
lake,
suit.
and you're wearing the suit. Exactly, you've heard this before. I'll just go through it anyway quickly. Right? You're wearing your nice suit, which you just on the way to your office,
Yeah.
and would you jump in with your suit
Yeah.
on and go rescue that
Yeah.
child? The answer is probably yes, right? You would not walk past
Yeah.
the drowning girl. Now you just ruined your suit of $1,000. Um, would you, if that didn't happen, would you have gone to the office and donated €1,000 to 100 children who are dying somewhere far away around the globe. Unlikely. The
Oh,
first one was a no-brainer.
yeah,
The second one is you have to really think hard about it if you want to do that. It's
yeah.
That's funny, right? It's strange.
As I said, it's all about what's in next to you, right?
Our brain is not actually wired to help something that is not right in front of us.
Because our brain is wired to live in a tribe, and a tribe is what you see in front of you. Our
Yep.
brain is not wired to feel empathy for something that's not there.
Right.
So if you have millions of yeah, if you see them on the TV all the time, you're gonna feel bad. But if you don't see them on TV all the time, if you don't call them up or something like that, then you won't feel it. You're like, it's gone out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that study, there was also similar thing or part of the study that they said, okay, would you do it or would you wait to see if someone else does it? I read something around those
Okay.
lines as well, and they said, yeah, you will have a moment of hesitation.
Yeah,
That
that's actually true.
that you will wait and you'll be like, is there anyone else going? And then you're like, okay, no one else is doing it, so now I don't care about my $1,000 suit, I will jump.
That
But
that is actually yeah, quite an important point. So if you would want to set up an effective charity, if you wanted to collect money, you have to make sure that everybody knows that nobody else is helping, right? That you're the one who now
who
needs
needs
to
to
step
help?
up.
Yeah, exactly. And that really, that is a marketing strategy that they use. A lot
Uh-huh.
of charities do this, that they try to incite you into feeling that, you know what, we cannot do it without you. You're the best thing that ever happened to us, and you're the reason that this is happening. And it makes you feel a bit special, but it also makes you feel a bit annoyed at the same time, that why am I carrying the burden
Mm.
of this charity? Why are not other people helping? And I think that's in essence the broken part of charity, because we're losing the human element of it, and that the human element was the reason charity began. Right,
Right.
as you said, it's an equalizing mechanism. It was a way of giving egalitarian behavior of supporting everyone around you. So it has to be local. It has to be grassroots. It cannot be big organizations like the Greenpeace Army or something like that. Although they do meaningful work,
Mm-hmm.
but you will never feel it. I'm giving some charity to Greenpeace Army because they cornered me here in the center of Eindhoven once. They were like, "Oh, do you know plastic this, plastic that?" You know what? I was like, you know what? I am in a good place in life. I never gave charity much. My mom would ask me to sacrifice a goat every now and then back in Pakistan. So
Okay.
I would send some money there. I'd be like, okay, mom, you can do it. And she feels very happy to
Oh,
do it.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very nice
That's an
digression.
interesting way of giving charity.
Yeah. And it's, you sacrifice a goat and you give it to the needy so that
Okay.
they can eat it. That's an interesting digression. I would say
Yeah, do go there.
let me finish the story, then I'll go there, because that's a very interesting story about my mom that I want to share with you. So they were like, plastic and only 2% gets recycled, the rest is dumped into like developing countries. Would you like to help? I said, sure, of course, I'm in a good place. Can I do one-time donation? He's like, how much you want? I'm like, how much do you want? Like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 is my thing, because I'm only giving a one-time donation, so I'm okay with 50. They're like, yeah, we prefer to do it monthly so that, you do it for a longer time. I'm like, okay, divide that by 5 and then let's just do 10 for the next few months. And they were like, yeah, okay, but most people working and everything give 15. And you see that they're priming you. They're trying to prime you to
Yeah,
give
just
us.
sales tactics.
Yeah, I know. And that's sad because it's charity. It's not sales. You should accept for whatever I'm willing to give. You should not coerce me into giving more than I'm
That's
willing
true.
to give. Right? That's in the end the whole point.
Of course, there are some kind of students that they are hiring to do that kind of sales pitch, and it's a
And
simplistic way of doing it.
exactly. And those students also might get something out of it, might be experience, might be commission, might be whatever. And that's fine. You have to operate like a business. But what I'm trying to say is that human element is missing. I'm talking about recycling somewhere else. And the only reason I gave in was because the student was like in front of me and telling me and priming me that you should do this, you should do that. And I asked them a very simple question. I said, okay, so if I want to change my donation, I said that very like sneakily because I didn't want to say if I want to cancel my donation. I said if I want to change my donation, change the amount plus minus, can I do it on the website? They're like, no, you have to call someone. I'm like, why? Why can I not do it on the website? They're like, oh, you have to call someone. I'm like, okay, so when you call someone, that human element again plays you in your role. That
Of course.
they will be like, oh, are you sure? You don't want to save the plastic? You want to do this, you that? And you're like, yeah, but it's my choice. Don't coerce me. Don't use psychology, my psychology against me in trying to give the charity. And I feel like that's where it's becoming a bit of a problem. It should begin at home. It should be people around you. And yes, for people in affluent societies like you and me, it might seem hypocritical that okay, what are you trying to save here? People in Africa, people in Pakistan, it's very bad there. You should just save and send money there. Like my wife's family also sends money back to Afghanistan because they're like, why would Dutch people need money here?
Yeah.
Just send it there. And I'm like, yeah, but you have a reason to send it there. You have family there. You have people there. So
Which is again the community. I mean, the community aspect, and
yeah,
I
exactly.
I think it's the best way is probably to really engage with your community and empower a community to become more wholesome, more
Yeah, and
affluent.
it has to be community based, because if you do it through these things, first it becomes insensitive, right? It becomes insensitive, you don't feel it, it becomes transactional. But on top of that, how do you know it's going in the right place?
Yes, I mean, a lot of these companies, you have, if you're hypocritical, not hypocritical, if you're uh, thinking about these things a bit too much, and you start thinking, well, what's their overhead? You know, is how much of that €10 that I'm spending a month is actually going to the cause, and how much is ending up in commissions and
Yeah,
office costs and everything else? So then you start thinking, yeah, okay, should I really do that? That's probably not the best way. But having a direct connection is really
yeah,
is the key, I think,
yeah,
for yourself and maybe also for the other. You could imagine that if you would give um, to the, I don't know, the family, the poor family who lives in your street, directly, it would make a bigger impact for your, kind of egoistical, good feeling about it, but also for them to have like this guy that we know across the street is helping us out. It is probably quite a positive effect,
yeah,
right?
it's the human element is involved, right? It's
Yeah.
not just like they say, oh, here's some money, and here you go, and
No, it's a display of kindness and caring, right?
it's a money secondary. It's about the fact that you thought of me, that
Mm-hmm.
I was in need, and you were there to step up. So money is definitely a part of it, but it's not the only part of it. And that's why
Mm.
it feels a bit more human, a bit more fulfilling than doing the more important thing as curing kids of malaria in Africa or in Asia, right? Because that's more and more important, because those are lives being lost that can be saved by just this small drip of vaccine that only money can buy, no matter how much kindness
Right.
you want to have. So it is difficult to struggle, like,
It
to
is kind
juggle
of,
this. Yeah.
and it's also difficult. I feel a bit nervous almost about what we're talking about because this we can really sound like assholes here, especially taken out of context. This can, yeah, this can come across pretty, yeah,
Tone deaf.
egocentrical,
Yeah, it could be tone deaf that
tone
you,
deaf. Yeah,
yeah, you're
that's the
not
right word.
realizing it, but that's the thing. Sometimes we are so stuck up in 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 doing these things that we don't want to go deeper into it. That, okay, why was charity evolved? Why was charity there to begin with? And right now, is charity an effective form of things to do here in the Western world? Maybe
Hmm.
it's an effective form in the Eastern world, but does it work here? And these are the questions that I wrestle with, because to take the conversation back to my mom,
Yes, do tell this
my
story.
mom loves giving money. She loves giving money away because
That's
that's how we're
great.
primed to do. No, it's great, but it's also what we're primed to do as in a religion.
But is it, sorry, just to clarify, love? Do you mean she feels the compulsion like that she should give money, or does she really enjoy it?
No, she enjoys it.
Okay, that's
She
good.
enjoys giving money. She enjoys the feeling you get after helping someone. She enjoys
Hmm.
maybe the feeling of kindness and gratitude that comes from the other side.
And she does it in her community
She does it
directly.
in her community, she does it with random people, she does it everywhere.
Hmm.
And in certain things it's to a detriment, because I'm like, okay, mom, do we have our house affairs in order or not? And we don't. We are messy, we are surviving. It's not like that big of a problem, but we can thrive. But instead of thriving, we're surviving, because she's willing to give everything away without putting our house affairs in order. And I'm like, but why? And she's like, no, if you give more, you get more. That's very important in our religion. You give more, you get more. If you give $1, you get that multiplied by 70 back,
Okay.
according to God. So I feel like that priming is so embedded in us that we don't feel like, okay, but you always help if you can. In the Western world, your family, they can. They're like, you know what, we can. Our house affairs are in order, and now we would step out.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you need to get your house affairs in order. But in our place, it's not about that. It's about you have to do it. We have to do it. We want to do it. We should be doing it, because if we're not doing it, we're not good people. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not important for you to do this to be a good person. But that's the thing. Like, you do it if like, what is that good saying? In an airplane, if something happens, what they ask you to do first
To put your own mask on
before you
first.
put it on someone else? Get your affairs in order before you can help someone else. But that's missing, because people get afraid of these kind of conversations. They're like, okay, we would be painted as a bad person if we talk about charity not being important or something like that. And that's in essence what I'm trying to do here, to have this kind of conversation.
Hmm. And come, I'm curious about the goat story. So what happens there with the goat?
So basically, it's quite common in Pakistan to sacrifice goats and cows. You know that, right? Like in our Bairam or Eid.
Mm-hmm.
So just not just that, but every other time you also have these charitable organizations that offer goats to be sacrificed, and
Right.
that's a good way of uh, getting the bad eye off you or cleansing your aura and all that
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
So, for example, if my kid is born in the next few weeks, then she will cut a goat.
And
She'd be
then
like,
what happens? I'm guessing the, the meat is getting split up and it's distributed to whom? How does that work?
no, no,
Do you know?
it's this organization that does it for you. So
Yeah.
you pay them, they
Yeah.
bring it, you touch it because you want to tell God it's yours or something like that. You know, you touch it,
Okay.
all right, and you're like, okay,
Interesting culture.
yeah, and then when the goat gets cut, and then the goat gets transported back to their organization, and it's given to the people that come to eat there for free. So it's like a free kitchen.
So
And
okay, it's almost
so,
similar to a soup kitchen in the
yeah,
West.
yeah, yeah, and it's their thing. We don't get any of that because that is charity. But the one
Sure.
that we do on Eid, on Bairam, that is if you have a cow, you split it like one third is yours, one third is your family's, and one third is for charity
Mm.
or for people around who you're not part of your family.
Mm-hmm.
But that is only once a year. But this my mom does throughout the year, and I'm like, that
Mm.
kind of beats the purpose, mom. You know, you need to. But she's like, no, give as much as you can, and I'm like, yeah, you should give as
Well,
much as you can. That's great.
it's great for
Yeah, it's
your
great.
spirit.
But again, it's a difficult conversation to have because you might sound tone deaf. You might sound like, okay, like you're being arrogant, you're being ridiculous. Like if you have money, why don't you give it?
Right.
And I'm all for it as long as you are intentionally giving it, and
Right.
as long as you know why you're giving it, feel free to give it.
Right.
I do not really have a problem, and the intention really matters to me.
There's also the thing when I was traveling. I've traveled quite a bit in poorer countries as well, and of course there I'm a very rich guy, like most other tourists, and I've realized that first of all I don't have that connection to money in comparison to the people around me, so I can easily go and buy some clothes, and it's not expensive for me, but I just spent a month's worth of salary for a month's salary worth of money for the people in the shop, and that is already messed up to not have that connection to the people around you, like that inequality, that disparity, and there is no equalizer in that sense, right? There amongst nations, there's not really that tax system or anything
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, it doesn't exist.
And then there is something on top of that that really kind of started bothering me and gnawing at my brain, was that when I went to more fancy places, or go to a nice restaurant once in a while, or to a bar or something like that, they would put a 10% service tax on the bill, and I would not even question that. I would just take it, pay the 10% extra on already a higher price, right?
Yeah.
And that's just messed up, because those are rich people owning a fancy restaurant, getting it even more, while the people who were just driving me in the tuk tuk, this was in India, or
Yeah.
also in Thailand and Laos and so on, and the people on selling street food and so on, they would never ask me for like a little bit extra, or they would not. I would even haggle with them sometimes. That's not just me. That's most travelers do that.
And just to break you off there a little bit, because again, my mom, beautiful personality, right? She does. I had this discussion with her. We would go into Nike and we'd buy a ball for 50 euros.
Right.
She'd pay immediately, right? And then we would go right outside with the ball in my hand when I was young, and we would go out, and she would find a person who's selling bananas, and then we would buy the bananas. The guy would say 5 euros, and she'd be like, "No, here's 3 euros." Right? And then the guy would be like, "Please, no." She's like, "Mom, 3 euros." And my mom has amazing skills, like negotiating skills. What she does is she takes this money, she throws it there, and she takes the stuff and she leaves. She's like, if he has a problem, he will stop me. And almost always they never stop them because they're like, it's okay, Baji, you can go, it's fine, it's fine.
Imagine she did that at Nike. Here's 30 euros, and if you have a problem with that,
You can stop me, yeah. And I told her, I'm like, Mom, isn't it unfair? You paid 50 euros for this ball that I'm gonna blow up in like a week or so, all right? And there you deprived that guy of 2 euros just because you were like, no, it's not worth. He's like, no, because he's taking advantage of me. It's not for €5. It's for €3. I know because I go around all the farmers markets. So he's selling to me on purpose. My mom's argument is they inflate the price on purpose. So you know that they're going to
Yeah,
negotiate.
you think Nike doesn't?
And I'm like, Mom, Nike, do you think this ball is worth €50? But it doesn't register in their mind for some reason.
Yeah, well, that's basically the magic of capitalist marketing, right? I mean, that they make you think that these things are worth it. But what you're saying is exactly the point I'm getting at. It's messed up,
It's
and this is not right. This is not fair in any sense. It doesn't even make sense if you stop to think about it, right?
yeah,
So what I was thinking about then, when we give extra, like 10% service charge, I should be actually giving it to the guy selling me curry,
yeah,
not to the fancy restaurant.
yeah,
And I should really be doing that all around me. That would really help. And maybe something like a mechanism for every traveler, at least for tourists. And I was thinking of an app that could integrate with like a money conversion, where you use when you're traveling a lot of finding out how much is this in my home currency,
yeah,
to actually see next to that not only your home currency but some kind of goods related currency. So this is actually so many percent of a local
monthly
average
budget,
salary,
yeah, average salary,
or this is so many bags of rice, or
yeah,
this is so many nights in an orphanage,
yeah,
or something like that, that you could actually compare one to one. What am I actually spending here?
yeah.
What is this to the people
Yeah,
around
because
me?
it's not just €2. You're like, €2 is nothing. I barely get something to eat in Holland for €2, but there, €2 is a day's meal.
Exactly. And so if you would have that perspective already, you would feel more directly connected to the needs of the people around you, which of course you didn't grow up with them, so you wouldn't even know maybe, but you could see that. And then add a 10%, charity charge on top of what you're actually spending. So if I'm saying, I just went and spent clothes for €100, or Nike football for €50, then, well, do €5 on top of that, which I'm going to donate to the people right around me,
Yeah,
and then have some initiatives that are really helping the poorest in the vicinity where I'm
yeah,
traveling. That's what I was being pondering in my head, if we could create something like that is
yeah,
actually useful for the people in the first place, for themselves, just a useful tool, but also raises the awareness and makes that kind of direct link, not
yeah,
just give it to anybody somewhere, but actually the people that you're interacting with.
yeah,
And yeah, I did it manually when I got home, or actually a couple of times in between in my trip. I just calculated how much money have I spent, and then take 10% of that and give it to an
the
organization,
local
very very
organization.
like
Yeah,
that I just happened to find nearby.
yeah,
Yeah, that's just an idea that
yeah.
I've.
No, I think it's a wonderful idea because, and on top of that, if you can add just initiatives, or just not initiatives, of people who are approved on that website, like on your app directly, and you can directly look at the person, look at their family, look at their situation, look at their average income, and be like, you know what, I'm connecting to this person already by knowing this much information. Here, this is bank account details. I just send it there immediately, right? And that makes you feel. That brings back the human element that we keep arguing about, right? That human
Mm-hmm.
element of community is there. That shows up. For me, on the other hand, I never check my balance when I am traveling,
Mm-hmm.
because I know I'm almost always over it. So I always come back, and then I do my math, and then I
Mm-hmm.
complain to my wife that we spent a lot of money. What the hell did we do? And then we realize almost
Right.
80% of what we did was just eating food.
Mm-hmm.
And it is beyond me how we can spend so much just eating food. So it's a completely different ball game. But that that is in essence the thing about your charity that you're saying. As a foreigner, you feel like that. Now I come
Yeah, you're
as
local when you
I'm a
go
local,
to Pakistan.
an affluent local in that industry, in that region, and imagine how it must feel to be served by your own people. Supposedly, if tribalism is a thing, that are going back home and not eating proper food, or
Mm-hmm.
not living in a very safe space,
Right.
or something like that. And it is beyond me that we ever think about that.
Well, I thought that too when I saw locals who are obviously well off, sitting in a hostel or something basic. Like it's one thing for a traveler from Europe coming there and being served by, let's say, poor people,
Yeah,
but it's a even different thing when people from the same place go and get served by poor people. I have never been in that situation because, yeah, like with my background and so on, I've never been served by poor people from the same
region.
region or the same culture.
Yeah.
But for you, it must be indeed kind of messed
Yeah,
up.
it is. Well, when you say it, it feels messed up, right?
But you kind of are able to
Yeah.
tune that out. I'm
Yeah,
sure it's
yeah,
normal.
it's a sensitivity bias. If you keep looking at bad news every day, you're either gonna get anxious or you're gonna get tired. You'll be like, you know what, I hear this every day, and
Yeah,
that's
of course.
I think that happens to us, that we look around us with so many bad things all the time that we just give up. We're like, you know what, let's just focus on us, right? And
Right.
this is where the second thing comes in about my mom, that why she loves giving up so much is because what we see when we hear this, what you're saying, is like, oh my god, I got blessed with more money or more resources than this person,
Right.
and I should be giving back to the community. And this is exactly why my mom is so poised and forced, in a way, quote unquote, to give back a lot.
Well, she's probably not forced, but
Yeah.
a nice way of looking at this would be to say, okay, I'm so grateful. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
Therefore, I want to give. And gratefulness, has been shown to have very positive effects for
Yeah, indeed,
yourself.
indeed.
So if you, in, yeah, it's very different from saying, oh, you didn't do well, so God didn't bless you, so you're going to live in the street.
Yeah.
But I have been doing well, so
No,
I got
no,
blessed.
it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not like
It also
that.
happens in Calvinist cultures.
Yeah,
And
that's that, you're basically talking about Americans, right? Because America does think like you're poor because you're poor, and I'm rich because I'm living the American dream, and like I made it.
Yeah, I've done the right things and
Yeah,
made the right choices and so on.
yeah, and
Well,
there is a debate there. I think that's for a different conversation, like debate of your choices and like drugs and
sure.
all of that stuff that you get into and then get out of, and like and how your choices affect your situation, basically. But to bring it back to, you've never been served by a person who's poorer than you, won't you think, because of my
Well, no,
comparison?
sorry, not poorer than me. That has
Yeah,
happened.
no, no, like not poorer than you, but
But
like
like not living in a slum,
not living in a slum and you're living in a normal house, right?
Yeah.
But I get that. But like if I compare myself to that person, it will not be like you versus a minimum wage worker, right?
Mhm.
It'll be, for example, a very affluent top 1%
Right.
of Switzerland
Yeah.
being served by a minimum wage worker.
Right. Something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So wouldn't it be still the same that this person has to work 40 hours a week to get something, and I'm living this life with my yacht or with my big 2 cars or 2 houses, and this person lives in an apartment? The dynamic is, for me, the dynamic is similar to this.
Similar but different because they're not struggling as much, right?
So that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
the social net is there, that you will
Right.
never be poorer than a certain point. There's a threshold that
Right.
poor you can be. And yes, of course, sky is the limit, but you have the basic needs
Yeah.
there for you.
Yeah.
And that's something lacking in countries like Pakistan and India. There's no social net.
Right.
You can keep falling. It's an infinite
Yeah.
thing.
You can
And
go
that's
down
where
to-
that's where I use the word force for gratitude. You know why? Because I really don't like this. But in countries like Pakistan and India, you are supposed to feel grateful for your situation no matter what. So, for example, I'm supposed to be grateful because I'm in top 1%, for example, there, right? And by the way, top 1% is not a lot. You might hear that and you feel
No,
like it's
but
a lot, but that's because the people are so poor there that I will tell you the equivalent. We did the math. Top 1% was between 300 to 500 euros a month.
wow.
That's top 1%. Not even joking.
So if you're over 500 euros, you're definitely in the best
top
percent.
top 1%. So some of my friends are top 0.01%, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's shocking because you think like that's not a lot of money, and that's
No,
the thing. They're not that rich if
what we
compared to
spend
you.
in a week of holiday.
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
but that means so many people are so poor because you know that statistic in India or Pakistan, people live under like $2 a day or $1 a day.
60% of people. Or something
Yeah,
like that.
that's exactly why it feels top 1% because the average is just so down. Most people are so poor that you might feel not that rich, but you are actually rich. And what I want to get to with this is then this becomes a perpetual cycle of feeling grateful. I'm grateful that I have this much money, but my maids or my driver would feel grateful that at least they have a stable job and they have a roof over their head. And then someone would be like, at least I have a body. I might not have a hair, but at least I have a full body. Look at that person. That person doesn't have hands. And that person would be like, at least I have a brain. Look at that person. That person cannot speak. You know, and it keeps going down. And there's an infinite cycle. It's actually a joke. It's infinite cycle that you always are like, look at the person worse off than me. I feel grateful. And that's how we're taught. We're always taught that count your blessings, look at that person. And I'm like, is that the right way to feel? Because you will always find someone who's worse off than you. You will always find a person who's worse off than you in a country like Pakistan and India. right?
Yes,
You
but
will,
it's gonna be better than looking up and say, oh, that guy has like a Ferrari. I want to get the Ferrari too, right?
yeah,
Like,
but
it's better to be grateful for that you have a roof over your head.
yeah,
Yeah,
but won't you now? Again, this is a bit of a digression from charity, but won't you think that stunts your growth or work ethic? So this is me bringing the bit of a Calvinism in there. That
I don't. I personally don't think so. No, I think the gratefulness will make you, um, you still want to actualize yourself. You still want to uh, get more out of your life. So it's not that, oh, just because I have now a roof over my head and that guy doesn't have a roof over my head, I'm not going to do anything more.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, could be a difference in perspective. But yeah, for me, it's more like you compare yourself to yourself. Compare yourself to yourself, yeah, like to your past self. How
hmm
much did I far? How far did I come now? Not to that person who's worse off than me, not to that person who's better off than me, but generally, where am I now compared to myself yesterday? And that's the
mm,
best way to. That's the best yardstick to compare yourself to. If you do it to that Ferrari person, you are raising in like unreachable things. And if you're looking at that person, you're setting the bar too low, that you might not be realizing your full potential. Either or.
mm,
For me, it's a two-edged sword. But
hmm
bringing it back to
yeah,
the conversation of charity,
yeah, because we said now like 60% of people in India live under €2 per
yeah,
day. That means with uh, giving €60, I pay somebody's monthly wage. I could give €600 and I pay 10 people's
monthly,
monthly wage,
right?
or one person's almost yearly wage.
Yeah,
600, €720
yeah.
would be a yearly wage. Wow. Like, should I do that? Should I do that? Because that's a big bang for my buck, right? I
it
mean,
it is a big bang for your buck, but I am a big fan of systems, right?
uh
And
huh.
if you rely on these things, like my mom does, right? She like give charity, and it's a proper system now. People come to my houses sometimes. They always know around Eid, around Ramzan, to come by and drop by to ask my mom, hey, Eid is coming by the way, and my mom is like, don't worry, I have your name and everything. But the list is just getting longer and longer, and I'm like, mom, this is getting a bit unsustainable for one family to do.
Yeah,
But
and
you need
also it's again unfair because some people are on the list and other people haven't heard of the list, haven't heard of your mom's door, and they're
they're missing out on it.
missing
So
out on it.
how is this working? So for me, the system is like, okay, mom, this is a good case study we do with my maid. I think this is something we discussed before as well. My maid gets paid a ridiculous amount if you consider it in euros or even in Pakistan
A
standards,
low amount,
low
yeah.
amount. So she gets paid an equivalent of 10, 30 euros a month, 25 to 30 euros a month
So
to
that's
be
less than a euro per day.
yeah, less than a euro per day to be working on 8 hours a day cleaning the house, right? It's a low amount, and my mom also knows that. Everyone knows that because that's the market number. We're all okay with it because if someone's like, this is not a livable wage for me, we're like, okay, go away. We're gonna find someone who's willing to do it because of the labor in Pakistan. But then there's also this implicit bias that we're gonna be helping them out no matter what. So if there's a hospital bill, we're gonna pay for it. If there's a wedding coming up, so for example, this girl that's working is a bit underaged, like she's a teenager, so she will get married in a few years. So her mom has already asked my mom that you're gonna be funding her marriage, and I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, of course, why not? She's one of us,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
like those kind of things. If my other maid, who's a very old maid of mine, she has had 3 or 4 hospital visits, and a lot of times we were the ones who footed the bill.
Hmm.
And I'm like, mom, that's all great, but that's you just trying to make yourself feel better. Because if you just give them a livable wage, then they'll be able to do this themselves.
So is that a common way of doing
That's
it?
the most common way of doing it.
Like most affluent families would do it that way. You pay a low wage
Pay
and
low
then pay
wage and then
them.
take them own them, like in the
I mean,
sense that
it's a
we take ownership
dependency.
of their
It's
responsibility.
creating a dependency.
It's creating a dependency because this is the
But
way.
it's almost comparable to a company, uh, the company giving you your health insurance, so you cannot quit your job because your health insurance will go away.
Wait, yeah.
For that maid, if she stops the job, nobody will pay her hospital bill anymore
Yeah, or
because she wasn't able to make any savings.
she
Or
wasn't able to make any savings, and with this maid as well, she was lagging a little bit at the end of the tenure, but she was crying all the time if you were asking her to leave because she was like, no, I can't do it and everything, and we told her, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. You've been with us for almost 5 years, 6 years. we will foot your wedding bill. Don't worry about it, because she got engaged when she was in her house, so she was gonna get married in a few years because she's young, and in our culture, it's quite common for the poor girls to be married young. That's a separate debate, but that's her family's decision, and we were only supposed to help. So we said, don't worry about it. We will pay for it, but we feel like you're not working well, so you can leave, but don't worry about it. Next day she left. No crying, trying, nothing like that. Before that, before we said this, every time we would have a fight and we would tell her to
So
no,
it
go
was an
home,
assurance.
she wanted assurance. And now she's gone. Never looked back, never asked us anything, like how we're doing and everything, because she's like, okay, they promised me. That's more than enough. And now we're looking for a new maid. Now, what I'm trying to say with this story is that if you do not give them a livable wage, if you do not trust them to be able to take care of themselves, that's the systems I'm talking about. If you raise the minimum wage, the CEO of Unilever, it's a very big company, the CEO of Unilever in Pakistan says that if we're not paying people a good amount of a livable wage, then how are they going to be living their lives? The janitor in this organization should be get paid around, what is it, 300 250 euros a month or 150 euros a month. That should be the bare minimum wage for the whole country.
Right.
The janitor should be paid, but they're not going to pay the janitor that much. That is something that people pay to university graduates in some places. So the the
So
place
why
is
not?
unique.
What would happen if Unilever, with whatever thousands of employees, would start paying their janitors and everybody else accordingly?
They can, but they won't, right? He said these things,
Yeah, but
but
what would happen if he did?
yeah, but he's a CEO. Don't you think he has the right to do that?
Wait, well, okay, but tell
Yeah,
me, what
but
would happen if he did?
no idea. I don't know, because he never considered it. He's just telling people
Yeah.
that the government should support us in doing this and everything. I'm like, yeah, if you say do it. There was this CEO of Virgin Mobile, right?
Okay.
He's very famous for his thing. What he did was all of his employees are on a minimum wage of 70,000 euros per year.
Right.
All. He's like, whatever you work, 70,000 euros is the base.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for some reason, and that's a good amount of money.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's true or not, because that's a story I read everywhere. This guy Brandon
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson, this guy,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So he's done it a lot, and of course everyone loves him. And
Yeah.
apparently there was also this story, again, only on social media. I don't care about this guy enough to research too much on him. That the first thing all of the employees did after a year of getting paid like this, or after months of getting paid like this, was buy him a new car.
Okay,
You
yeah,
know?
that sounds like a story. But
That
okay.
sounds like a story. I don't know if it's true or not, but the whole point is they were gratitude. They're grateful, and that's fine. That's great. It's no
Right,
problem. But
right.
systems need to be there for charity to go away. As we said, charity taxes to me is the same thing, right? Like if you have a proper tax system, then
Or a minimum wage system.
the equalizing of wealth happens, or it naturally happens. In
Yeah.
Pakistan, there is no tax proper. There's no proper tax of collection of taxes,
Yeah.
and there's no proper minimum wage system. Because there's a proper tax collection. If there's a proper tax collection, then the government will be able to support businesses by giving them
Right,
tax benefits,
right.
and then force them that you need to pay people minimum wage no matter what. We're here to support you.
Right.
That's how organizations work here, right? When COVID happened, the Dutch government told their business owners, small business, do not fire anybody, do not fire anybody, do not do anything like that. We'll help you bankroll the payroll. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
people were chill. They were all like, don't worry, guys, we're not going to fire you.
Yeah, and it's then we get into the realm of like cash giving, or even universal basic income kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if everybody just gets that wage to have a good living, then then we have a situation where everybody can look out for themselves and also can have the money to support their children and support their community. So it kind of helps people out, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to get
Yeah.
to that interesting charity that I was hearing about a bunch and then looked up again, called Give Directly.
Yeah.
So there was a project where they said, okay, we're not going to drill any wells in Africa. We're not going to give out bags of rice. We're not going to like build schools. We're just going out and giving people cash,
Yeah.
like in villages. And they did a randomized control study where they gave some random families cash and others not, and they saw how it transpired and how each of them went. And they found out in a very scientific way that the families that got cash were generally of course better off. They were helping their children get better education. They were doing businesses. They were investing startup ideas, simple companies, and it just really helped those people to be less stressed in daily
Yeah.
life. I think that's another really interesting point, because when you're not sure how you're going to pay your next meal, you have a mental load.
Yeah.
Your mental well-being is impacted by that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if that goes away, then you don't have that much dependencies on other people. You can just say, okay, I can relax, and I can start to maybe I start being selfish a little bit, but after that, I'll probably start wanting to do things for others as well. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, because you're just
You're in a better
in
place,
a better
maybe.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I I think the argument against universal basic income is that you might make people lazy. That's what people say all
yeah,
the time.
that's like, or people just go piss it away, drink it away, whatever.
Or they're not going to work, and then how is the
Yeah,
capitalist economy going to work?
yeah, yeah.
I heard a very good counter to this was that if people don't need to work to live, then they will find something that they love to work for. And that's going to be helping the capital economy as well. So, for example, if someone wants to be a chef and open up a restaurant, but because they don't have stable income, they will never get try that out. They will never take that risk. They will always be worried about the next paycheck. But if their income, and again, universal basic income isn't a lot. It will be what, 500,000 euros a month or something like that, which barely
Let's
covers
say
your
less than minimum wage. Yeah,
less than minimum wage. Minimum wage is like 1,500 to 1,800 here in Holland.
something like that.
Something around that. So if you get paid like 1,000 euros, that's only going to help you pay in certain cases a bit of your rent, in certain cases the whole of your rent,
Right.
right? And that's it. That's it. The utilities maybe. So you still have to work. But then
Right.
people can take risks. They're like, you know what? Okay, maybe I can open up that restaurant that I've been dreaming about, and then from there, the restaurant, if it works, he's going to hire more people or she's going to hire more people, and then the capitalist economy works. So it's a very anti-capitalist argument, this one, that, oh no, they're going to sit on their asses, and then the economy falters because of that.
Yeah, that's also what these guys found with their trials, that people did not generally like a majority of people went out and reinvested that money, and they made something with it that was good for themselves and for the people around them. And also what I found very interesting, one of the arguments I've heard against it before is like, okay, you give those poor people cash, even give the homeless guy some cash, he's just going to buy some booze with it, right?
Yeah.
He's just going to drink it. And actually, the narcotics and alcohol expenditures even went down in the study. So people who had more money used less
Because
alcohol.
maybe we don't know, maybe they were using narcotics because they were in a bad situation. They were so overwhelmed, they wanted to numb the pain. We don't know. But that
Something
is
like
something I actually have a question about. In Pakistan, have you seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire?
Yeah.
It was an Oscar winner, and it talked about this whole begging ring that they have there. And this
Yeah,
was almost
yeah.
a decade old, but now as well, people are finding
Basically
out.
a mafia, right? Just to catch it up, it was a mafia of like homeless children
Yeah,
that
well,
were
it was
run by a head guy who
yeah,
was collecting the money
and
that
these
they
kids were deformed and handicapped on purpose, so that
Right.
they can go and make some money, and that money was then given to the headmaster who would pay for all these kids. So because of that, there's this prevailing thought in Pakistan as well that this is exactly why people are here. It's quite normal because most of these kids you only see in affluent areas, not in poor areas. So I was unlucky in the sense that I come from a family that is affluent, but that wasn't affluent. So my dad was raised in a very humble place, and I have still roots in that place. I have family living there, so I visit there often.
Okay.
And I go there and I don't see many beggars in that region
Right.
because
Okay.
that place is low
You
income.
mean like in this, let's say in the slum, there's no beggars.
Yeah, exactly. But if you go to a very modern neighborhood, a very rich neighborhood, suddenly all the traffic lights are filled with people asking for money.
Yeah, but that makes sense, right?
It does make sense, but the thing is, poor people can be everywhere, right? And you can ask money from everyone because the people on those rich affluent places also do not give a lot of money. Most of them, they always complain about this, that, oh, there's so many beggars in this region, and they sound tone deaf sometimes. They're like, can you remove them? It's not making my drives in my big Mercedes really well.
Yeah,
They sound tone deaf sometimes. But there is some merit to this argument that it is run by a ring, but again, we don't have concrete evidence to know that it is the case. So in Pakistan, the prevailing thought is, okay, feed them, don't give them money,
Right.
feed
Because
them.
they cannot bring that food to their master.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for us, my mom also always just says, feed them. If you see a poor child who's asking for money, tell them, do you want to eat something? And almost always they will say no, because they don't want money, or they don't want food, they want money. But in my experience, sometimes they go like, yeah, of course I'll have food, but I'll have two, I'll have three. I'm like, it's okay, at least it's food. They can't
Mhm.
take it away from you. You'll
Mhm.
eat it. Maybe you're going to feed it to someone else. It's fine. So we would give food to people sometimes. We do that. My brother and a lot of my friends are also involved in charity drives. Again, it's innate from us because of our religious upbringing and because of this gratitude induced charity that we do, because we like look around us, people are worse off than us, and I don't feel comfortable with that, so I want to fix that.
Mm.
And because of that, they try to come up with a way of giving back to the society a lot.
Right. I also, when I was living in Istanbul, I had that experience. Often the kids, or you know, strategically stationed mothers with babies that were placed somewhere, and you just knew that they are actually run by an organization. They're basically the salespeople for an organization
Yeah,
trying to bring in money. Um, and also the situation where you would actually go to a kid and offer him, you know, something better to do, school to go to, like pay for school. They would refuse it, and they're like, no, I'd rather be in the tourist neighborhood and get nice things from the
yeah,
tourists and so on. So
it's
that taints the whole topic of
it
charity and makes it very cloudy. Like
yeah,
again, how do you? Maybe we can circle back to like
yeah,
how do you do that properly? Um, yes, we said earlier, give directly to people in your community, or
yeah,
that can be time as well. You know, volunteer,
yeah,
men, mental social support,
yeah,
all these kind of things.
yeah,
But and do it to people that you actually know, that know you. I think
yeah,
that would be the absolute best if you can. And if you go beyond that, then um, yeah, find organizations where you can personally know the
yeah.
organization. I think that would be great.
And to add, finally, to add this, the thing that we've been making everyone wait for, effective altruism,
Yeah, tell me.
is this charity organization that believes that the
But it's,
most bang for your buck you get is based on scientific evidence that they do.
but it's not so effective. Altruism is a concept or a school of thought, right?
It's a
Or is it?
charity. It's a movement of charity. It's a school of thought, but it's
But it's
also
not like a specific organization. Just
it
to
is also a specific organization as
okay,
well.
yeah,
And what they believe in is that how it values life years over quality of life. It says if you survive or if you elongate someone's life, just life, that's more effective for your money rather than increase someone's quality of life. But from their perspective, I'm assuming because I don't know their perspective, is that if someone's dying from malaria and you save them, their quality of life also kind of goes up a lot, right? Than a person who is
right,
poor or disabled in a certain way,
right,
and their quality of life goes up. So it is a bit difficult question, but that's what effective altruism is, and that's what I wanted to share with you. That they say this is empirical, scientific based way of giving charity to get the most bang out of your buck. And yeah, some people disagree with it, some people agree with it. But as you said, the problem with charity is it's very human. You can try to
yeah.
make it empirical, but it is very human at the end of the day.
I think that's what it comes down to. You have to find your what you are most comfortable with yourself. You have to do some thinking about it. I think it cannot be just a stupid way of giving charity.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. What is what is feeling good, but also what is just actually. I'll take it back. What it comes down to is be kind and support others,
yeah,
um, rather than most bang for your buck or where to do it exactly. And if be kind, support others comes down to your neighbor, or you want to be kind to and support people in Africa, that's also good. I think
yeah.
as long as you have that mindset in life, you'll get somewhere.
Yeah, I think so as well. This is very, very nicely said. It is, you know me. It's always a bit more complicated than
Of course, it's
that.
complicated.
Yeah.
It's like
So
immensely complex, but
yeah,
yeah,
it is. We all are there to survive. What I don't like, to be honest, what I don't like a lot of times is this feeling of, as I say, compulsion. The reason I use the word compulsion a lot in this conversation is because you are privileged in however you are, right? Being a
yes,
good job or being raised in a Western world or whatever, and that's fine. But you still did not choose this privilege either,
no,
right? So this compulsion that comes on top of that, that you are privileged, you need to give back to society, or you should give back to society. Especially that I told you how we
moral
the
obligation.
moral obligation, that kind of scares me a little bit. That yeah, I believe so, and that's why what you say, be kind. That always works. That's the best thing you can do as a human.
Mhm.
Uh, but then it's also like, okay, can we do better? And
It's not about better and bigger, right?
yeah, and that's where it starts to get a bit confusing. I think being kind is like the bare minimum you should be doing as a human, right? And after that, it's like, okay, I have some money around. Should I buy a yacht or should I save millions of kids? Like there, it comes a bit of becomes a bit of a question mark. But again, what I want to close off with is charity. For me, in an ideal society, will never exist, because an ideal society will have systems in place to support their poor people.
Systematic charity
Yeah, systematic charity,
or
or
systematic support
or,
systems.
or,
Yeah.
or tax shelters, or not shelters, I mean tax safety nets or social security nets. That those are things I would like to invest in, rather than investing in this conversation of, okay, where should I give more money or do the research, or
Mhm.
should I build stuff or build a foundation and everything. You're doing a good job, but if you provide African authorities with the infrastructure to treat their own people, it's much better than treating 100 kids and be like, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
That's in essence what I want to close off with.
Okay. Yeah, that's been interesting. Some different perspectives here, and I hope that we don't sound too tone deaf.
I again, another disclaimer for everybody who's listening: we are not tone deaf. We know what we're saying, and we understand it might come off a bit confusing, but that is in essence the problem with nuanced conversations, that
Mm.
you cannot make it that easy. And that's the
No,
thing:
it's not easy.
when you make it simple and easy, you are trying to dilute information just because it's more digestible. Being a data analyst, the biggest example I give is, okay, if you have 100 data points, you will not understand what's happening. But if you take the average, suddenly it makes more sense.
Mhm.
You're like, average 1%, average $60 a month. You're like, okay, wow, that's very easy numbers. Well, 100 euros, 300 euros a month, and you top 1%. That's an easy number. That's digestible. It is, but is it telling you the whole truth? No, the whole truth is that more than 60, 70% of the people live below like 60 or 70 euros an hour, so a month, and you have like 0.001% who are living more than at 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, and that distribution is very important for you to know. But that information is very difficult to digest, so you condense it to one number.
Mhm.
And when you condense information, you lose information.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And in the same cases here, if we try to condense it, charity good, moral obligation, we are losing information. And I want us to have those nuanced conversations where it feels a bit murky, a bit confusing, but we are getting somewhere.
Yes, I think we did.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Phil, for your time.
Yeah. Thanks. It was really nice.
And it was wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you're ready for another good conversation with me and Phil back in this yard next time. So thank you so much for listening.